Good day, everyone. Today, let us talk about The Filipino is Worth Dying For speech by Benigno S. Aquino. Let's give an analysis about this speech, but before that, we will know first who is Benigno S. Aquino Jr. Benigno S. Aquino Jr. was born on November 27, 1932 in Concepcion, Tarlac. His nickname is Ninoy. His father is Benigno Aquino Sr. and his mother is Doña Aurora Aquino. In grade school, he studied at St. Joseph College of Quezon City. In high school, he studied at San Beda College, and in tertiary, he went to Ateneo de Manila and studied law at University of the Philippines. At the age of 17, he was the youngest war correspondent to cover the Korean War for the newspaper, the Manila Times of Aquino Roses. He received the Philippine Legion of Honor Award from President Elpidio Quirino at the age of 18. He also became a Filipino senator in the year 1957 to 1962 and a former governor of Tarlac. In October 11, 1954, he married to Corazon C. Aquino. They have 5 children. He was assassinated on August 21, 1983, when he was shot in the head after returning to the country. So now we are done knowing who is Benigno Aquino. And now let's proceed to the speech The Filipino is Worth Dying For. So let us analyze what is in the speech. So what type of essay is this? So this essay is a strict or impersonal type of essay. It deals with serious topics such as life, death, and freedom. So let's proceed to the pattern of the essay. It is in deductive pattern because it started with the general hypothesis the Filipino is worth dying for. So now let's talk about the elements of the essay. So these are the following. What is the idea of the speech? What is the motive of the author to write this? The structure of the speech? What are the explanations, the evidences, the coherence, the implication of the speech, and the presence? So first, the idea. Basically, the idea of this essay is already stated in the title itself. The Filipino is worth dying for. Next is the motive of the author. The motive of Ninoy in writing his essay is to convince Marcos to give back the freedom of the Filipinos, since according to Ninoy, the Filipinos are definitely prepared for democracy. So now let's proceed to the structure of this speech. In the first part of the essay or the speech, Ninoy reflected about who the Filipino really is. In the middle part, Ninoy argued that the Filipino is ready for democracy. He even cited the era of the Spanish conquistador and the barangay. And in the last part, Ninoy identified himself as being like the Filipino, and he also prepared for freedom. He also persuaded Marcos to give back their freedom, or else Marcos would suffer the consequences of his arrogance. Here are some explanation why Ninoy wrote this essay or this speech. So Ninoy wrote this essay and delivered it as a speech before the Asiatic Society in New York on August 4, 1980. This was after almost 8 years since his imprisonment due to Marcos' proclamation of martial law. In this speech, he recalled his experiences and the insights while he is in prison, and most importantly, his reflection that the Filipino is worth dying for. This speech served as an open letter to Marcos back then. Ninoy has evidences in writing this speech. Ninoy argued that the Filipino is worth dying for because he, the Filipino, is the nation's greatest untapped resource, and also because the Filipino is not a coward. Filipino values life. Filipino tends to give his leader the maximum benefit of the doubt. Filipino is a good leader because he is also a good follower. Filipino loves freedom. Filipino puts the highest premium on human life and human dignity. Filipino would try to adapt till his patience runs out. Filipino prepared for democracy. Filipino values freedom, but because he values human life more, he would not easily take up arms and would rather wait until his patience runs out. The transitional devices used in the speech or in the essay are words such as and, like, again, but, and rather. The implication of this speech or this essay was that if worst comes to worst, that if Marcos would not grant the Filipino democracy, Ninoy would rather be ready to die for that freedom, and that revolution would start because, as Ninoy had stated, the Filipino would wait until his patience runs out. Ninoy also gave Marcos an ultimatum that if Marcos would give back their freedom, he would suffer the consequences of his arrogance. Let's proceed to the present. Ninoy wrote his speech as if he's just talking to Marcos. Again, this is just like an open letter to Marcos. It contained some stories that were based on Ninoy's experiences. He was so focused on the topic that he was able to freely depict his life as a prisoner. So this is the summary of the Filipino is worth dying for. I have asked myself many times, is the Filipino worth suffer or even dying for? Is he not a coward who would readily yield to any colonizer, be he foreign or homegrown? Is a Filipino more comfortable under an authoritarian burden with the freedom of choice? Is he unprepared or worse, ill-suited for presidential or parliamentary democracy? I have carefully weighed the virtues and the faults of the Filipino, and I have come to conclusion that he is worth dying for because he is the nation's greatest untapped resource. In this full form, Ninoy's statements gain eloquence and a deeper meaning lacking from the 6-word truncated version. It is no longer a mere one-liner espousing blind nationalism and sacrifice for heroism's sake. In this passage, he honestly considers the sobering doubts and limitations of the Filipino people, yet despite of this, his resolve wavers not. For Ninoy, despite all of the Filipinos' faults, the Filipino is worth dying for because he is the future of this nation.